Welcome to On the Brink with Andi Simon. I'm Andi, and as you know, my job is to get you off the brink. What I really want to do is help you be an anthropologist. Think about how can you step outside and see, feel, and think in new ways so that you can understand really what's going on and how it can impact you, who you are, what you're doing, and why it's important to change, perhaps. I'm honored that we were ranked 18th among the top 100 podcasts on the topic of change. I have some great company in there. But it's a reflection of the fact that I kind of find people who are going to help you do things in a new way, and you embrace it, and then you bring me some more people. Today is a very exciting day. I have Carey James with us today, and thank you, Carey, for joining me. Carey is an amazing individual who's going to help you understand how AI cannot take your brand if you have a personal brand. And we're going to talk about who are you and what's your identity? And is it your company or is it what you do in that company? Or do you have a life outside of it that brings a lot of complexity together in terms of who you are? What's a brand anyhow? In my old marketing days, a brand answered the question, why you? Today, we're going to worry about how do you create a story, because it's a story, people buy a story, about why you. Let me give you a little background. Most people stumble into branding. I'm going to read Carey's LinkedIn bio because I think it really reflects who he is. He broke out of the neuroscience lab. Now, I'm an ex-academic, so I understand this. He broke out of it at midnight and never looked back. What he had discovered, he was deep into PhD research, and he was swimming in brain scans, footnotes, and the slowest publication pipeline known to man. You don't publish, you do perish. But if you can't publish, what are you going to do? So one night, after too many hours and too little oxygen, he realized he wasn't built for academic purgatory. He didn't want to waste years making an impact. Instead, he wanted to move fast, connect dots, and build something real. So he dropped out. That's of his PhD program. So he started working with founders and thought leaders and brilliant minds to help them do something important. They had no idea what their brands were or why it was so important. So that's where he came in. He co-founded Brand Alchemy to help those geniuses turn their knowledge into influence and their names into assets. Now, if you're out there, it doesn't matter if you're an author, a thought leader, a CEO, a key executive, a mid-market entrepreneur, this is a story important for you. He doesn't do formulas. He builds brands rooted in evolutionary trust, the kind that's hardwired into our biology through storytelling. Now, this is important and why I find him so attractive for today. I don't know. He says 100,000 years ago, some hundreds of thousands of years ago, humans had a quantum leap in their brain. So instead of things being a person, they became a meaningful person. And stories became the way we lived. And he's shaking his head. So if you're listening and not watching, I think he has something to share with you today. And that's about as much as I'm going to tell you about Carey. I'm going to let him tell you about his journey. He'll make it come alive better than I can. And it's his brand. So Carey, who are you and what's your journey been like? And help our audience understand why they should trust your approach to branding them at a time when AI is going to do all kinds of interesting things. And I'll tell you some stories later. Please, sir, who are you and how did we get here?
Thank you so much for the introduction, Andy. And yeah, it's great to be here. Excited to talk with a real corporate anthropologist. It's also anthropology is a topic that I was actually obsessed with at one point, still am in some ways. But at the end of the day, I'm a nerd. I'm a geek, and a nerd about human behavior, human psychology, and influence. So one part of my story that I don't often share is I actually started out in Hollywood. I worked in entertainment for a short time. And while it was really fun, got to meet a lot of great people. One thing that I realized really fast is that the real superheroes aren't in Hollywood. That's where the fake ones are. And the real ones are in the world of science, which is why I ended up, with an obsession of human behavior, understanding everything from Meisner to method acting. I started studying things like anthropology, started studying things like, neuroscience, why we do the things we do based off our evolutionary pasts. That led me to the lab, pursuing a PhD in neuroscience. And essentially, what happened is, yeah, it was way too slow for me. I wanted to see real change today. And I'm sitting there with some of the, what I felt were some of the most well-respected neuroscientists, in the industry where we're pioneering, different techniques in the world of neurofeedback, which is like kind of like brain training. anyways, the people I was working with were amazing. And the interesting thing is they were so amazing. I was seeing it every day, all day, but then they weren't getting their work out there. They were kind of existing as these, quiet geniuses in the shadows. So I decided to make a change about that. And then I went out and started selling them. And I always think about this as like, making people sellable. Branding is making people sellable. PR is selling them. So I started hitting the PR waves with the two doctors that I was working with. And within a couple of months, they were on everything from Good Morning America to the Today Show to Dr. Drew, Dr. Oz, and TED Talks. I actually, 13 years later now, I just got one of them on the USA Today bestseller list with the kind of brand, that we identified years ago. So
Pretty cool. And as you developed your branding, you went from PRing them to then just finding more clients. Is that how it grew?
well, it was definitely nonlinear, to be where we are today. I ended up, so I've worked on the ground in about 10, 20 countries now around the world. I've worked in everywhere from Singapore to Bangkok to Berlin to London. And currently, I'm in Mexico City. That's where I do most of my work now. A lot of my clients are in the U.S. But with that being said, it was definitely a nonlinear path. I leaned way harder into the sales and marketing side of the thought leadership world. So what that looked like is I was working with executives at Fortune 100s, understanding how enterprise worked, how market launches worked, et cetera, and then just kept following the interests of like what's the human behavior behind this, what's the psychology behind this. And now having, I've done probably about, depends on how you do the math, but about 40 to $50 million in sales directly in my career. That's on, one-to-one deals to corporate complex enterprise deals. And the one thing that kept sticking out over and over and over, which is an idea I think you prescribe to, is the idea that all sales are human to human. Every sale is just a decision based on trust. So all trust is human to human. A lot of people, and I have a list of I call them non-commandments, things you shouldn't do. A lot of people think about sales as it's their company. Their company has to be amazing, their logo has to be amazing, all of this in order to get clients and market share. And I disagree with that. Most humans, in my opinion, unless you're Coca-Cola or one of the legacy huge untouchable kind of brands, they care about the people behind it. And even then, when you're a large company, you look at Tesla, for example, it's like people buy Teslas because they like Elon Musk, or they don't buy them because they don't like Elon Musk. At the end of the day, he could have called it something else, but they're buying it from him essentially. So so yeah, that's like it's everything's been informed by sales and marketing data. Just a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and interestingly enough, while not traditionally trained in branding work, what I found is that sales and marketing gets a lot more efficient and easy when you have brand dialed in. So that's why I focus on that as a foundation for all the work that I do with the various thought leaders that I work with. When people know who you are, they'll be more likely to buy from you. But if you're hiding behind, a corporate logo or something like that, and you're, quote unquote, letting the work speak for itself, as a lot of the people in academia and science say, doesn't mean much. They have to know who you are. And it goes back to, like you were saying, our tribal environments. And our tribal environments for hundreds of thousands of years, we had the medicine woman, we had the hut builder, we had the hunter. And while we had our designated roles within the tribe, we often we built trust in other areas. We would become proficient and an expert in one area, and because of that, people would trust you with their life, even if to do something else. They would say, "Okay, well, they're pretty good at this thing. They're probably pretty good at those other things." So then you start to, and we built these relationships up over whatever 50 years, 60 years, whatever the time the life cycle was back then. But nowadays it's different. It's not 100 to 200 people in a group, it's hundreds of millions and billions. So then the challenge and the exciting challenge becomes, how do we make it feel like all, a billion people know us one to one like they did in our tribal days? How do you develop that the tribal value system, the trust, et cetera, that we had back then? Because our brains are still operating on that software, so to
Well,
speak.
and now this is not all of a sudden you wake up in the morning, I want to build my personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is a serial entrepreneur. He's built several companies, and to some degree that he built them and people bought from him. So I understand the power of that personality in it. And the trust came often from meeting with customers and asking, what's missing? How can we help you? Not this is what we sell and please buy it. And so we often laugh about the fact that he grew it to 100 plus million and was able to sell it because, and then he's not there and it doesn't work. What is it that
Mhm.
you can do as you're helping an entrepreneur, for example, try to build their personal brand identity, or a company leadership team that knows that there's going to be changes coming and how to begin to identify it? Where would they begin? How do you give them a starting point and then how you cultivate it and begin to nourish it so next thing you know, they're knowable and lovable?
Yeah, so great question. And it's like there's some slight paradigm shifts that we like to work on at the beginning that lead to, expanded compounded growth over time. One of the first ones, and this, it seems so simple, yet some people struggle with it in a big way, is understanding that your name is probably the most valuable asset that you'll ever own. Your specific name, not your company's name, not even your PhD or your education, et cetera, but your name itself. If leveraged in the right way, it can be more scalable, more profitable, et cetera, over time. So one thing is just claiming yourself as an asset, treating yourself, your name, like a business rather than an afterthought, or rather than something where, oh, I should kind of hang out in the shadows, not let people get too close. And the reason being is not because you want to be flashy or obnoxious. It's because it's survival at this stage. You mentioned before, there's two types of people that we typically work with. One is people actually trying to grow and expand, and they're thinking pretty ambitiously. They're trying to, go from a six-figure brand to a 7 or 8 figure brand, sell products, things like that. The other one is the legacy developers, and it's people that have worked throughout their career. They have a body of work, they have logos, they have a resume, but for them, it's about ensuring that the right story is told. Either one, for either one to be relevant in the new era of AI, it is absolutely necessary to treat your name like an asset, because eventually, and this is happening faster and faster than most experts even predicted, uh, you will not be the smartest in the room, regardless of who you are, because literally it's going to be impossible, because the robots will be smarter than all the humans on the planet. And I say that not to doomsday, but it's just the truth.
Oh,
It's
it's
just the
true.
trajectory we're on. So then it comes down to, what do we really have? What is the actual value of a human? And it's that, doubling down on the humanity behind yourself, your expertise, obviously, but it's not just your expertise. It's the specific flavor of expertise you have. When people are coming to you not as a expert, but the expert, the Andi Simon brand, for example,
Mm.
it's the peculiarities behind you. It's the way that you think about ideas, the way that you digest, and you take signal here from this market and signal here and put them together and then give your own spin on it. And that's when people, and I've seen clients do this time and time again, when they really own that their name is a brand one, and that they're unique opinions, unique thoughts. Corporates are scared of giving opinions a lot of the time. Corporate executives, they're scared of being loud, but it's getting to the point where it's a survival. It's necessary for survival. If you don't share that, then people won't understand why they should pick you, why you should stick out. So it also goes into trust, like we were talking about before, but your imperfections are one of the most valuable things you have, because robots are perfect. So when you can actually own your imperfections, what that does is creates vulnerability, which leads to trust. So when you say, okay, I have like really key insights on this, but there's some things we don't know, and there's some things I'm hesitant to move forward on because of this reason. That's why people like you. Um, and I could go further on that, but another thing that's really valuable, and you know this from anthropology, is that often people these days, when they see socials or they see people being very out there with their brand, they get scared of what's called rage bait. People saying, "Oh, this is terrible, and I just want this for the clicks," and it's controversial, conflicting kind of information. There's a fine line between that, because in our tribal days, it was just as necessary to define the culture of the tribe as it was to define what the culture was not. And you would say that tribe across the valley, they're mean, they're violent or something. We are not. We believe in equal rights. We believe in this. Nowadays, that's absolutely necessary in the market as well, because if not, you get overlooked. People don't trust you if you're not saying, I'm for this and I'm against that. So The point being there is once you define your brand, you claim yourself as an asset, you understand your values, you understand your peculiarities. I call them your sound bites, like what are the things only you say? And then you start to figure out who are you for and who are you against. It's necessary these days. If you don't do that, people won't listen to you.
Well, you're talking like an anthropologist to an anthropologist. And it's unusual to get somebody who understands the human evolution and condition as vividly as you do. So a couple of things to emphasize for our listeners and our viewers. What Carey is talking about is that we know who we are by who we're not. And we define ourselves in opposition to them. And his point is that as an individual or as a member of a tribe, both of them are relevant here, you only begin to find out how to create identity and brand equity by defining yourself in opposition to somebody else, which sounds a little conspiratorial, but in fact, that's why humans are. You know you're a guy because you're not a gal. What else are you? And whatever kind of person have you created? When I asked Carey to tell you about his story, he was telling you what he wasn't and what he is. And it was a branding story as well as what yours should be. The second thing he's talking about is that it's ownable, but only if you own it. And I would like him to talk about some of the research he's seen and done that people who don't have an ownable brand, for example, looking for a job on LinkedIn, don't get one. But people who do get one. What is it about that ownable brand that cuts through the facts into a story that somebody can buy? Because people buy stories, they believe the stories, even if they're not true, because there's no truth. And so help us understand what you've seen happening as a result of the work you're doing and the work others are beginning to understand as well, because it's some power here. Please.
Yeah, so there's several fun stats that I can share, and I can give you, study after study. But a few that are relevant. One in particular is that when you look in the world of VC investment, so I work in the world of yeses. I'm always looking for 10-second yeses. If I have a client and they're looking to get, they're looking to, go up the ladder in a corporate structure, or they're looking to get more consulting clients, or they're looking to get a $50,000 keynote. These kinds of decisions are typically made in a very short amount of time. And I've been on the booking end and I've been on the client event, and I've seen it happen over and over. They have a split second where they're like, okay, is this person the best at what they do? Do they, can they back up the claims, et cetera, about what they're talking about? And do I like them? Do I actually like them? Are they the right vibe, the culture fit for what I'm doing? So I like to take this example. There was a study done by Harvard Business Review over the last few years that showed that when VCs are looking to invest in a company, or they have an idea, they're pitched by a startup, they place a significant amount more value on the founders themselves than they do the actual project. A lot of you look at like the background and the trajectory of some of the biggest startups in the world. They didn't start with that idea that they are today. The concept they are today is not how they began.
Yep.
But the founders stay the same. So when a VC is about to give a startup $10 million in seed funding, they are looking at the people way more than the concept itself. Yeah, like, is the market viable? Is the product there? Sure, that might change in 3 months. But what they really look at is the person. And if the person is a ghost, then they can't know who they are. If the person has no thought leadership developed, then they're at a distinct disadvantage compared to other people that they're considering to give money to. That's one, in the VC world. One as well as for people that own companies, founders, et cetera. Research shows that if you're looking for great talent, which that's, the talent wars are among us right now. It's getting more and more with less and less opportunities, people getting replaced by AI, then the talent war increases. So people are more likely to work for somebody they would consider a hero or somebody that they look up to than somebody they would not. And you can't just compare and contrast resumes to give them that information. Thought leaders, people that go out, they get on stages, they talk about their unique IP, their intellectual property, the beliefs that they have, or maybe they're more active on social. Maybe they've done a TED Talk, things like this. You are more likely to be able to acquire, headhunt talent from other companies to take them from your competitors if you have a brand that is developed, which is significant because when you're competing in, especially in, tech markets, et cetera, It's night and day difference, the people you get on your team. There's actually data that supports that people will take a pay cut to work for their hero, somebody that they look up to, because it's mission oriented. They're tribally aligned. So they will actually take less money to work with you if they think you are a thought leader, if they vibe with what you're putting out. So the last one, or last bit in terms of where we see money going these days. So it was just announced, this is over a year ago now, but YouTube is now watched on living room TVs more than Netflix in the average American household. That's also, I mean, more than all the other, entertainment providers. So people are watching YouTube on their living room TV now, is the point. When they're watching it, they're usually watching human beings. They're watching creators. They're watching people that are developing their brands by putting out content. They're also watching TED Talks. They're watching podcasts. They're watching, they want to be in, that's where the human brain lights up, is when they engage with others and they see others putting out content. The point being there is that this marketplace, it's becoming more and more competitive, number one. It's becoming more mainstream. Some people actually say that, the last election was won through podcasts, 23 hours of exposure for one candidate versus about 3 hours for the other. So people are getting better and better at branding themselves, putting them out there, getting visibility. So the competition has increased, and it's now, it's gotten to the point where it's necessity. Plenty of data to support this, and without doing that, people just get kind of lost, and they get lost, and they disappear much faster. They become irrelevant in seconds and minutes rather than weeks and years.
Well, I'm listening to you and I'm smiling and thinking at the same time. I'm trying to make sure I hear you accurately, because my next question is, okay, for our listeners or our viewers, how should they do this? It isn't sort of like I wake up today and I want to build my brand, so where do I start? But you're giving them a toolkit, sort of. I'll go back to brands, answer the question, why you? Secondly, we live the story in our mind. So what are you going to do to change or create a different story? And then people buy the story. And so your story has to resonate with their story. That's sort of my foundation around here. Am I right? Sort of. And if I am, tell us, how would you do it? And I know a lot of thought leaders who probably could use your thinking, if that's okay for you to share.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And I'd actually like to add one more statistic that's relevant for this question. And that is that more and more every day, people that I work with are coming directly from corporates, and we're talking Fortune 100, 500 companies. There's a significant amount of those companies that are now designating a portion of their overall marketing budget into their executive brands.
Wow.
The people, the VPs, the directors, the C-levels, things like that. It's now becoming a significant strategy for them, because they're going out, like they're putting people running their Twitter accounts. They're running, getting them on podcasts and shows, because in a more polarized world that we live in these days, people care about who they're buying from. And that's all, like, it's either, it's enough for them to say, I like this person, I'm going to work with that billion-dollar company, or I'm not. And it's at scale. So anyways, on that front.
Pause for 1 second. I just want to emphasize what you just said, that it used to be that you hid your personal brand inside the company and you represented the organization, not you. Mm-hmm. Now, the companies have recognized that people buy from people, and that personal brand has to be elevated, emphasized, and crafted. How interesting. What a mind shift that is. And now, please tell us how.
Yeah, they're selling their people. So the how is fun. It's a lot of times when people start out, I like to share things not to do rather than things to do, and then you get into the things to do. So one thing when people start, they get really overwhelmed with information. They get overwhelmed and they're like, there's so much being blasted at me, and it's it could be it could be a little too much for them. So usually I focus on mistakes not to make. And one thing that I was saying before is, like, treating your company more important than your own brand equity. A lot of times, like, and I'm just speaking mostly to founders now, we can get into, people that are in corporate or employees, but founders, et cetera, they often neglect their personal brand to raise up their company brand. Biggest mistake right there. If that project fails, for example, if one company fails and you leave, you have absolutely nothing under your own name.
No equity.
You are a ghost again.
Nope. Yep.
Yeah. But what's fun is, regardless if it fails or not, if you've built equity under your name, then the trust that has been developed under your own name gets transferred to the next project and the next project. This is where you have serial entrepreneurs that have hits and misses over and over, but the same amount of eyeballs of trust, of connections, et cetera, go from project to project. So one thing to keep in mind there. But we'll go back to, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about developing my brand. Where do I start? Number one is realizing that your offline brand and your online brand are not the same thing. Offline brand is your reputation, your career, your direct contacts, maybe referrals, things like that. Online brand is the world in which people that have never been exposed to you, they've never heard of you before, how are they perceiving you? And usually, often is the case, it's not at all who you actually are. They don't match. There's no,
No, they
there's a
make
big
you
gap.
up. They make you up
Yeah.
to fit their story, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact is that you have an online brand, whether you know it or not, even if that's a lack of an online brand. People are Googling you. If you're in the world of business, people are looking you up, they're vetting you, making sure you're legit. So if you have nothing, that's actually a better place to start than having something that is inaccurate. Because usually people have something and it's not telling the story in the right way.
Right.
So how do you tell the story in the right way? How do you get this accuracy? One of the first, like the foundational paradigm shifts that we work on with clients at the beginning in my own company is this idea. I call it the label in the bottle syndrome. And it's something I kind of heard about before. I've kind of developed it into my own concept. I'm actually doing a TED Talk on this in March. So label in the bottle syndrome is this, it's this phenomenon that everybody struggles with. I've worked with people that run billion-dollar branding and marketing campaigns. They struggle with this themselves, some of the world's leading experts in branding. Label in the bottle syndrome is when you are inside the bottle and you cannot see the label from the outside.
Yeah.
And that's simply it's just like, trying to write a book when you are the book. You are the person inside the book. You are living this and breathing this every day. So often people, they become overwhelmed really fast because they're like, okay, what about this? What about this? But they're the wrong person to be telling the story because you can't see it, from the inside looking out.
Yeah.
With that being said, talk to people that know you is one of my biggest recommendations. So in the corporate leadership development world, you have 360 reviews. When you're working with an executive that's running a company with hundreds or thousands of people, they actually go out and they interview the people around them for data to understand what are their strengths, weaknesses, what are their peculiarities, what are the areas that that are unique only to them, their specific management style. And what's really fascinating is that empowers them in a way that like a lot of people, they'll describe it. Sometimes people even get emotional when they hear the feedback from others. They're like, oh, wow, that's me. That person that I kind of knew my entire career, that's me. And there's this idea a lot of times, people in the woo-y community, they say, go in to learn about yourself. I say the opposite. I say, talk to the people around you, talk to your spouse, talk to your colleagues, talk to your direct reports, things like that. And then what you'll see is patterns where it's like, oh, that's the true me, because it's things that I already, some things I believe, and then they're revalidating them. Yep. And then what you start to build up is a profile that is then able to be taken outside of yourself onto paper, onto strategy, and then scaled through the marketplace. That's when you get that one-to-one with millions, is when you understand those unique characteristics about you. And often, it's a matter of like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your unique stories? Because we are story-oriented creatures. What are the stories that you can pull up? What are the top 5 stories of your career that convey not only your expertise, not only your values, but also your weaknesses, that say, hey, I did this and here's some vulnerability so you can trust me, that kind of thing. So starting with other people, getting, I've plenty of resources like this that I've given clients before, where it's like, here's a survey, go have your friends and family fill this out and then give it back to you. So starting from outside the bottle is kind of the idea there. When you have that, being really clear about, like I said, who that is and who that is not, and then going out, and then we move into the sushi analogy. So I was talking about the sushi analogy. You'll probably appreciate this, Andy. Usually people, they have 20, 30, 40 years of experience. They have logos here. They have incredible depth of expertise in different areas. But the thing is that people they can't consume that in 10 seconds or less. They can't trust that in 10 seconds or less. So when you go to a Michelin star sushi restaurant in a new town and you look at the menu, what does the menu have on it? It's usually one page. It's one page with maybe a handful of dishes. And they say, okay, wow, this place really knows what it's doing because they only serve these things. They must be great. They have the accolades to show for it. What they don't do is a 20-page menu with every meal you've ever heard of. And what's fascinating, as we hit on before, is when there is that one page, a handful of things, you typically trust them in other areas. You'll
Yeah.
trust them in this area, in that area, in that area. So the second kind of stage of this is figuring out what you want to lead with. What's going to be, above the surface, the few pieces that only you want to own,
Yeah.
versus all the things that people need to figure out once they start working with you. So art is not what you put on the canvas, it's what you leave off the canvas. So really
Well, it's like
identifying those
strategy.
aspects.
It's not what you put in. This is really a fascinating conversation because you're just brilliant in what you're doing, and I have a hunch the timing couldn't be better. We were going to talk specifically a little bit about how AI can't replace you. I'll tell you
Mm-hmm.
an interesting story because I do want to at least shed some light on how to use the world of agents and AI and the fourth industrial revolution and all the stuff that's coming without thinking of them as the other, as the enemy. We started out talking about we and they, and you can think of them as the they, but I really think of them as part of us. So I am my one-liner is when I launched my business 23 years ago. As a corporate anthropologist that helps companies change, I haven't changed my one-liner in a long time. And I've been doing it for all kinds of big and small companies, billion-dollar companies and little ones. Um, I've been working on building my presence on Chat, my best friend. He's become my teammate. And I have a new publisher and a book coming out. And the publisher said, I don't know what a corporate anthropologist is. So I asked Chat, and it gave me a very good description about it. And it referred to a lot of the stuff on your website. And then at the end, it said, and if you want to meet a good corporate anthropologist, meet Andi Simon. And I said, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
Chad. And I said to myself, so my new teammate is my best friend at promoting. And I asked Chad, what do I do to sustain among all of you AI folks the credibility of who I am and what I do? My single sentence, what is it I do and how do I do it? And they said, keep providing good content that's honest and truthful about your expertise and your experience, and you will feed us with the kind of information we need to identify you as a leader here. I share that with you because our conversation started with how AI is not going to replace you, but it can complement you and it can elevate you. Your thoughts on my thoughts?
Um, so much fun to unpack there. I think it was Bill Gates, and I always butcher this quote, but it's something he said something along the lines of, automation applied to an efficient process increases efficiency, but automation applied to inefficiency, causes a lot of problems. And that's what a lot of people do is they go out and try to like I've tried this dozens, like lots of different ways. I've worked with AI experts on this, but AI as of this moment cannot replicate the human soul. And by soul, I mean the depth of your brand, like what we were talking about, all the human elements, characteristics, etc.
Absolutely.
It can take that and it can amplify it in some pretty amazing ways. But until that is established, then you're shooting in the dark and it's just repeating nonsense. So really starting out with I call it your brand DNA, like the foundation of that, like your background, your story, your uniqueness, all of this. Once you have that determined, then yeah, you could fly to the moon with AI, with writing content, writing books, things like that. But what I see is a lot of times people they get really again frustrated and overwhelmed with the amount of things they can do. So then they start doing everything, and then nothing is good as a result. So I operate with a few core truths on content, which I think that's what we're talking about here is content creation. People they think they got to be going all day every day to keep up. They got to produce 10 pieces of content every single day to even stay relevant. I disagree. I think that smart people or my geniuses, as I call them, they should be swimming in their area of genius as much as possible. Flow state access, if you're familiar with the world of flow states, like whatever place that you're able to get into flow, you should be there often.
Right.
And typically that's going to be on, in areas where you're teaching or you're communicating, you're consulting, you're, doing podcasts, you're doing things like that. You're able to actually go out and engage in conversation and, get in a flow state where things light you up. That's where your best content is right there in those spaces. It's not you going in your office by yourself with a whole bunch of unnecessary equipment that's way too expensive and just talking to a wall for 3 hours straight. Typically, people struggle with that. And it's not also being stressed out when you're at a family event thinking, should I record this or should I not? So the goal here, the point is you should be in your area of genius as much as possible. So figuring out how to do that while outsourcing the rest is where you're going to shine. There are plenty of people. There's, kids coming out of college that would love to post your socials for you, that would love to, edit your content, put your videos out and all these things.
Yeah.
But the goal here, and this is one hack, and we do this for my clients, but I'll just share it. But it's like the goal is to do a solid 1 hour at the minimum per month of you living in your area of genius. That needs to be recorded. Once you have that recording, that could be you on a stage, you on a show, you even just being interviewed by a colleague on a Zoom call. Yep. Taking that and ensuring, they're asking you questions that light you up, and then taking that and then having someone else actually distribute it, edit it, et cetera. There's AI tools that exist today that can go do that for you. And I'll probably be putting myself out of business with those kinds of tools here very soon, but it exists. You don't go learn editing today. Don't go try to become an influencer overnight. Just figure out the areas in which you can live in your flow state, in your area of genius, the opportunities for that. Access those opportunities, have a blast, have an amazing time, and then take that and turn it into content.
The interesting thing is that it's not very different than the last 30 years that I've been in business. If you did something good, but nobody knew about it, it wasn't very good. It was good for you perhaps, but a book that's not read isn't very useful. And part of it is, how do you get on the stage and tell people about why rethink is really the kind of thing you should be rethinking. It's really interesting listening to you, Carey. I'm having fun, but I do think our time is just about over. So, a couple of things you want to leave the audience with. They tend to remember the end better than the beginning, and not the least of which is, do not fear AI. It's not going to take your brand, but you got to create one. But your turn. What are a couple of things you want to remember?
Yeah, and I hate to be the doomsayer in the AI world, but it's gonna it's gonna shepherd in a new era of doing things, a new way of doing things, a new we're gonna become much better in a lot of different areas. But the truth is that you as a human, the only real asset that you're gonna have going into the future is your name. Mm-hmm. And if you understand that and own that and treat your name like a business, then you can succeed. If you do not, you will fall behind, and that is the truth. Simply a matter of fact. That being said, learn AI. It's going to become your best friend. Treat it like what I do sessions and I have my clients do this. It's like, actually go talk to your AI about non-business stuff. Just hang out with it. Just ask it an opinion, tell it to give you some insights, turn the voice feature on and actually have a conversation with it. So become best friends with that. And then, last but not least is realizing that everything we do today is based off software that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years. The software is still the same in our brains. Like, people are still thinking, we still have the same emotions, all these different tools and resources that we used back in the day. It's just the medium has changed. So once we understand those core concepts and then we can apply them to the evolving mediums of our time, then we can win. And that should set you up for success, understanding that.
Often when I speak, I remind people that the human brain hates change. It protects you. The amygdala hijacks most of what I'm going to tell you in the next hour. So let's start off by saying, what is it we're going to have to remember? Because that amygdala doesn't really want to work too hard, learning new stuff and making you feel threatened. So it's going to appease you, and it's going to fear you or flee me or do something to protect you. So starting with that, change is really a fascinating time. I love it. I have a friend who loves curiosity and loves to go exploring. But most folks don't know what to do with it. And what you're offering them is a pathway to the next stage in their own personal careers, their brand and their story. Remember, we live the story in our mind. It does exactly what it thinks you want it to do. So you want to stay where you are, go right ahead. But if you want to begin to build that story and begin to build an awareness of it so people buy you, then this is a time for a whole new adventure. Make it fun. It's an exploration. You're smiling at me. Am I okay?
Mm.
Preaching, this is cool. Now, if you need a hand, Carey may be exactly the hand you need, because sometimes alone is a little scarier than even doing it with you. So if they want to reach you, where can they find you best, Carey?
Yeah, totally. I'm on LinkedIn as Carey James. It's linkedin.com/Carey James official. All my handles are at Carey James official, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And you can also, if you'd like, you can get a free brand audit with my company, Brand Alchemy. That's brandalchemy.io. We specialize in helping you see the label from outside the bottle, and our internal mission is to find superheroes and give them capes. So if you want to be a superhero, give us a call.
I think I'm going to do that. But notice that Carey told you about how to find him and then told you about his company. As opposed to, let me tell you about my company, and I'm embedded inside. There's a message there, if I'm not mistaken, about how to find him and his brand so he can help you create your own. This is a great time. Enjoy it. I did my doctoral dissertation on punch cards. I don't think you tried to do yours, but I don't know what to do with punch cards. I sort of save them just in case somebody has a use for punch cards. Most people don't even know what they are. So times do
Mhm.
change, and sometimes
Yeah.
what was the way we did something is no longer the way we do things. I was pretty proud that I got it done on punch cards instead of just a typewriter.
That's
Now,
beautiful. And I want to add, Andi Simon's still around. Punch cards might not be, but Andi Simon's still around.
well, I always
So
date myself when I say that, and I'm not going to tell you my age, but I'm really excited about what comes next. And I want to encourage folks to pick up our books. Amazon loves you. On the Brink, Fresh Lands to Take Your Business to New Height was my first book. And it has been very cool at both being a bestseller and award winner and bringing us great clients, but it's how a little anthropology can help your business grow. What Carrie is talking about is how a little anthropology, looking outside in, can help you yourself become that business that needs to grow. Am I right? You got to step out and look in and see, feel, and think about yourself in a new way. My two books about women, Rethink, Smashing the Myths of Women in Business, is about 11 women who said, of course we can, and didn't allow society to put them in boxes. And my third book, Women Mean Business, is just about 102 women who can't tell you enough about how to be successful. And my new book will be coming out in March. It's called Rethink Retirement. And it's a really interesting journey into all of that next stage in your favorite time of life, I think. But I love work, so I'm never retiring. And so for me, this is a great time to share. Carrie, thank you for being with me today. It's been a pleasure. And I want to tell all of our listeners, remember, take your observations, turn them into innovations. And the times they may be changing, but you can thrive. Just open your mind to what's possible and it will come along. It's a great time. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great day. Bye bye now.